So today we've got my lovely wife here, Natalia, to help us show you how to use an operating microscope to do some basic restorative. This would be a really good case to start with if you're just learning how to use a dental microscope. And the reason is it's on the top. You're already used to using a mirror in that area anyways. And really, it just helps you focus on the basic positioning of the microscope, getting used to that, where to put it, and then just how to kind of resolve that disconnect that happens when you're looking forward but seeing down, because that's a little bit different than what you would experience with loupes, unless you're using ergo loupes. So we're gonna start with anesthesia. I'm gonna be doing everything through the microscope. That doesn't mean you have to, so when you're first starting, you might rather just anesthetize with your loupes or with just a headlamp, whatever you want. So don't feel like this is the right way to do it. This is just a comprehensive way to use the microscope for restorative. And then the tooth that we're working on, by the way, is the second premolar, and it's the mesial surface. There's just some very subtle caries into the dentin. So one thing you'll notice that I have on the microscope here is an extender. This is really nice for getting a wider variety of positions for what you need to do. So for example, with anesthesia, I can get a really nice direct view of the upper vestibule because I have this extender and I can do it comfortably. See, if you look at this view, is perfect. It's exactly what I need, and I'm completely comfortable in this position. So I'll put some topical there first. There we go. You know, by contrast, if you're using loupes for this view, you know, to be able to see this view, I would have to come like this, right? I'd have to really bend over. And not that it's a big deal because you're doing it for a short period of time, but you know, those compromises to your ergonomics over the long term, they can add up in some people and cause some issues. So that's a nice thing about the microscope, is you don't have to make those compromises a lot of the time. So I'm going to take the exact same position for the anesthesia itself. So I got the vestibule there, nice view of it. Let's come in, and then a lot of times I'll use my finger to kind of stabilize the syringe. Small pinch here, Natty. One thing you'll really want in a dental microscope, if you're shopping around, you want one with a good low-end magnification. You know, for things like this, when you're doing anesthesia, you want to be able to see quite a bit of the arch. So anything around that 3.5x or lower is a really good low-end magnification to have. I think the sweet spot is around 3.5x personally. I really like it. And that's what these ZoomX microscopes have. I love the rubber dam as a microscope dentist because it allows this beautiful macro retraction of the cheek and tongue. So we don't have to worry about it, you know, especially when you can't just change your perspective so easily with a microscope. The microscope doesn't follow your head like loupes do. So to be able to have hands-free retraction established for you, that's a really nice thing, and I highly recommend using a dam whenever you can. So you can see again, with this extender, I have a really comfortable ergonomic position and a beautiful view of what I need to see for proper rubber dam application. I can see the buccal of the tooth. I can see the lingual of the tooth. So I'm gonna have you open just a bit more. Open this out, and you can just see that like that's a perfect little engagement of the tooth there. Have you open just a bit. I'm gonna slide this on, and then I will get you that hole, I promise, okay? There we go. Is that okay there, Nancy?
Uh-huh.
Perfect. This is redemption, hey, for the Rosanna video. The nose isn't covered. Look at that. Beautiful rubber dam. Wow, I'm impressed. Take a peek. All right, so we know our caries is under the mesial marginal ridge of the 2.5, and we're gonna grab a pink wedge to just pre-wedge this. You know, in terms of what magnification to work at, I like to kind of be at medium magnification for restorative, and medium low. You don't really need that much. And I would tell you that if you're first learning, it's way better to stay at a low magnification just so you don't have to move the scope so much. You will see that as I do move the scope today, I'm going to be using my nose to kind of get different views. Like this gives me a really nice lateral movement, and that allows me to not have to actually physically touch the scope with my hands in order to reposition things all that often. Sometimes you have to, but with your nose you can get by with a lot of different angles and perspectives without ever having to use your hands, which is handy when you've got, you know, a handpiece and a mirror and you don't want to have to put them down. Now, another good rule of thumb, just to kind of for setup here, if you look at the plane of occlusion here, this isn't exactly what I would want for the upper arch. It's kind of tilted down instead of straight out. I actually want the occlusion to be straight out like this. And that's just an easy rule of thumb to guide you when you're first learning. You don't really need to be thinking about this once you're fluent with the scope, but when you're first learning, it's nice to have a good reference point to know that you're in a good position. So I'm gonna move the scope more like this. That corrects that arch. And what this does is it just gives you a much better mirror angle for your work. So that, if you take a look at that now, I've got a beautiful view. My mirror is actually quite far away from the tooth that I'm working on. And it's got a nice broad surface here. It's not crunched like this. So this is a really nice angle and a great starting point for us to start prepping. And then, sorry, Amy, one last thing is, on these ZoomX microscopes, they have the built-in camera too. So often what I'm doing is I'm taking a picture before, like this. I'll just hit the button and then that captures a photo. And then I take one during and then I'll take one at the end as well. And by doing so, it gives a really clear picture of what actually happened. So the patient understands the value of what you're doing too. Call it clinical storytelling. So you can see, if we're looking at the CEJ now, I'll grab the Explorer. We have our carries into enamel, and then just beyond that, the DEJ carries into dentin. So again, it's nice to take a photo here. So hit the button, got a photo, and then you can show the patient exactly what went on afterwards. Now, if I'm being picky right now, if I'm being picky about my ergonomics, one thing I could improve is settle my elbow down to have more gross motor rest on this, or gross motor support on this armrest. To do that, I'm just going to bring it a little bit more forward. And now with my elbow supported, I can do much more fine movements. And it's just, even if you don't have the best finger rest, it's really, really helpful to stabilize what you're doing with the handpiece here. So that's really nice. If you notice the filling on the 2-4 or the first premolar, it's not exactly ideal contour for our interproximal contact. So before we go ahead and restore this, what I am going to do, I'll leave this as a slot prep. We got lots of enamel to bond to, but I'm going to just zip this a bit to improve the contour, make sure that our IP contact is really, really favorable. And then zip this back. I want to see a little bit better over here, but you can see the handpiece is kind of obscuring my view. So to get a better view, I'm going to just move the scope over with my nose and then reposition my mirror. And you can see that now I've got a great view of that area that I was trying to adjust. So a lot of times, you're doing this without thinking once you get good at it. But actually, for me to explain it to you, I kind of have to slow down and say, okay, what am I doing exactly? And that's usually what it is a combination of moving the mirror and then moving the scope with your nose. Now, to make this way easier for you, if you're working at low mag, again, you don't have to think about moving the scope because everything's within your field of view. You can just move your mirror. And that's why I say if you start at low magnification, you're going to be way better off early with less frustrations. You still have such a clear view of what you're doing even at low mag that you don't really need high mag all that often, but you have it when you need it. By the way, the mirror that you use too is also very important. I really like these big broad mirrors that are very bright from Innova. I don't actually know what they're called. Motrancer. I really like them, and they just provide a much brighter surface than your typical mirror from like Patterson or Henry Schein or whatever. So highly recommend these guys. Big stretch again. By the way, the reason I like to pre-wedge the pre-wedge the tooth is that when you are breaking your contact, you can just see the pink like immediately as you break through it. So it's just this nice visual feedback that you've gotten through the contact point. So that's a really nice little adjunct. Okay, now let's grab our sectional. So for us to do this completely under the scope, you can use a combination of direct vision and indirect vision, and that's what I'm going to do here. So I'll grab the sectional from you. And a lot of times to confirm the transfer of an instrument or a sectional or something like that, I'll just take a look down from the scope like this, and I can see the whole field here, and then back in the scope immediately to actually place the sectional where I want it. So I'm gonna put that like that. So now I'm using direct vision, grab the pink wedge. Good. And then for the actual V-ring, you can do either. You can just do direct vision like this. Sometimes it is nice to have indirect, and you can kind of just sneak the V-ring in behind to see, okay, am I happy with this? And then I am, so I'm gonna leave that there. And that's the beauty of low magnification. You can just alternate indirect, direct, indirect. It's really nice. The microscope and how to use it, I actually have a course at masterthemicroscope.com where you can learn essentially all of the different kind of pieces that come into this to come into fluency as a microscope user. And it is one of those things where it's like if you try to figure it out on your own, it's going to take way too long. So getting proper training, and obviously it's a bit of a plug here, but I would really recommend it because I don't think that you're going to have too fun a time if you just try to figure it out all by yourself. And just to kind of show you what high magnification looks like here, you can just really appreciate how the material flows. So like composite, even though it's a paste, like it flows quite nicely. So you kind of just get a more intimate understanding of how these materials are actually behaving at a, I don't want to say microscopic level, but you know, at a more magnified level. Good. Now before, I'm going to tuck this in, because you can kind of see a void in the making here. So I'm going to tuck this in first before I place any more composite. That's good. And now when we place our last little bit, we can just watch the material express over the margins, and you just feel a lot more confident about that, that material sealing everything nicely without voids. I'm going to grab the double-sided black from you. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I'm not is a composite artist. I don't, you know, I've seen some beautiful work out there, you know, like Maxime Bellegrade and others like him can create some beautiful and very, very like biomimetic restorations where they, I don't know if that's the correct term, but they just look so real. For me, I'm looking for just like, you know, shade match and anatomy match, like primary anatomy match. And as long as I have that, I'm satisfied. But I do admire those people who really go all out. It's pretty cool. Now, a lot of people kind of balk at the idea of using a microscope for a simple filling. For me, it's not about like being able to see better for something like this. For me, it's about being able to sit back comfortably, being able to share what I see through the microscope with the video feed. Like that's so unique to the microscope, and no other technology really affords you that. And those are really the big benefits that I see for basic restorative. There are times though when you're doing like a more challenging filling, where it's just so nice to be able to crank up the magnification, crank up the light, to be able to get a bit better visualization of what you're really after. So that had some nice tension on the way out. It means I'm confident that we have a nice interproximal contact. And you, in fact, with the microscope, you can see whether you have an interproximal contact or not. You can just see that it's together. And we're going to do some fine tuning here to get this just where we want it. One thing I'll say is if you have the correct mirror position, meaning we talked about like the occlusal plane coming out straight at you in terms of like the actual plane. In fact, I could even improve it a little bit like that, so it's perfectly straight. Now by doing that, I can actually rest my mirror on her either lower lip or the lower teeth and kind of have a mirror rest here. And by doing that, like the mirror is very stable, it's not shaking visually, so that's really nice. And then I can bring in my handpiece and have my gross motor joint support with the armchair. And between that, you just got this very, very stable visual field and also tactile dexterity to do your job. And this is essentially where I would take my final photo. You know, we've got the tooth all filled in, take one last picture, hit the button, and then we got it. And then you can show that as part of your presentation to the patient at the end of the procedure so that they see the value in what you're doing. Okay, we'll take the rubber dam off. Again, consistent with our comprehensive workflow, we're gonna take the clamp off with the rubber dam, take the clamp off with the microscope. You don't have to do that. I'm just showing you that it's possible. One thing I like to do at the end, you know, a lot of times your patients will complain about the tooth feeling gritty. So usually it's not because your filling's rough, it's usually because there's bond stuck to the rest of the tooth. So I'm just gonna grab a scaler and I'll kind of show you this in action if we can. I'm just gonna scratch on the tooth. Actually, can you do a little suction there just so they can see? Yeah, so you can see the bond coming off there. All this little stuff that's just stuck to the tooth. You can just kind of see how that's all coming off, right? Does that feel okay when you bite down, Auntie? I know it feels a little bit weird because you're frozen. Good. Awesome. Well, with the filling in, we're all done, and I hope you learned something. If you have questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer microscope-related questions. And we also have a free trial for the Master the Microscope course. So if you want to check that out, I can leave a link below for you. I'll also leave the website info too. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.